Good evening, and welcome to another story in my complete read through of the Complete Griselda by Oliver Dickinson. Tonight's story will be Down Among the Dead Men, which originally appeared in Different Worlds 43 in 1986, and is the first of three Griselda stories which would appear in Different Worlds. So, settle in. I hope you're reading along. And you have a drink of your choice with you. Mine is a nice cup of tea. And if so, I'll begin. Down Among the Dead Men. One time, it is well on into the evening at Loudlalina's, and Hanufa and I and a few others are engaging in singing. For Hanufa likes to sing almost as much as she likes to talk. And I'm fond of a song myself. We are singing that old drinking song that goes, "And he that this will health deny, down among the dead men let him lie," which adventurers and mercenaries and such love to sing. And we're giving it a fine rendering when the door is flung open and someone enters, making for the bar with great determination. The floor connects with Hanufa's drinking elbow, causing her to shower beer all over us and breaking up the song. Now, to spill Hanufa's beer is one sure way to make her mad. And she starts yelling some most impolite things at the newcomer, who is already downing a drink at the bar. The newcomer turns round, and the joint goes quiet, for this is none other than Ragnar the wrestler. Now, this Ragnar is quite well-known personage around Pavis, though she's not here too often, for which most citizens are heartily thankful. There can be no doubt that of all the tough dolls in Pavis, Ragnar is the one who most likes to make a show of her toughness, and she will take any opportunity to cut up rough and jerk folks around. She is a big doll, maybe 40 or so, and no one remembers her any different from the way she is now, which is with a scarred face and eyes that are black and cold, and a mouth that seems permanently set in a sneer, and black hair cut short, and she has a pair of large hands that she uses to express her bad disposition every chance she gets. It is a peculiarity of Ragnar's that she loves to fight bare-hand, and the chances are she sends many opponents to the healers this way, and maybe kills some, for it is claimed that she can break a neck with the edge of her hand, if she hits just right. What she does for a living is a mystery, for she is not known to work at anything, and it is sometimes said that she preys on the unwary, in the rubble, or out on the plains. But you can hear such stories about half the visitors to Pavis. Anyway, most citizens do not bother their heads over Ragnar, but consider it one of the unpleasant facts of life, like the government, and the trolls, and the price of everything nowadays. Well, Ragnar looks Hanufa over and says, sarcastic-like, "Do I disarrange your hair?" Hanufa is only in town for a few weeks and knows nothing about Ragnar, so she does not quiet down, but she comes right back at her. "No, you disarrange my beer," she yells, which is quite smart for Hanufa, and I will thank you to buy me another one. Ragnar cocks her head, as if she's studying this proposition, and then says, "Tell you what, I'll arm wrestle you for it." Now, Hanufa fancies herself at arm wrestling and accepts at once, before we can explain how unwise this is. And they sit down at a table. Some are speculating that this time Ragnar may meet her match, for Hanufa shows a good set of muscles. But all the smart money goes on Ragnar. She's very cool, while Hanufa is mad clear through and through, and wastes her strength fast. And then Ragnar pushes her arm over hard and gives it an extra twist, and down Hanufa goes on the floor. She is certainly suffering as Ragnar stands up and gives a nasty laugh. "Down among the dead men indeed," she says, and walks out. And here I must explain that the dead men in the song are not actual stiffs, but the empty flasks and such on the floor. Well, this is all very typical of Ragnar, as I explained to Hanufa while she's going to the healers to get her arm fixed, and I advise against taking the matter further. But she does not look too receptive. "I will not be doing much with this arm for a while," she says. But now is the time to see if I have true friends. It does not take a genius to figure out what that she means to call him Griselda, and so I stick with her. For a confrontation between Griselda and Ragnar would certainly be worth seeing. Though I do not see where Griselda is bound to lift her finger for Hanufa. But Griselda is not to be found uptown that night, and so we give up searching. When I drop into Loudlina's early the next afternoon, there is Griselda, looking all tuckered out and with her back against the wall and her feet up on a stool. I say to her, "Do you hear that Hanufa gets all crippled up?" "What does she do now?" she replies, sounding very bored, and I begin to explain. When I name Ragnar, she sits bolt upright. "Tell me about this Ragnar," she says. And as I do so, it is remarkable how Griselda loses all sign of tiredness. I'm barely finished when she is on her feet. Let us look into this," she says. And when I hesitate, she looks at me most impatiently. "Come on," she says. "I need you to finger this Ragnar for me." And I judge it best to comply, for fingering Ragnar is not without risk. But even more risky to disappoint Griselda. She sets off fast as if she gets a line on someone who owes her money. And we try all the inns and grog shops in Old Town, but cannot get a word on Ragnar. And I'm beginning to feel wary, for I seldom do so much walking. But Griselda is bound and determined to keep going. When word gets around that we are looking for Ragnar the wrestler, much interest is displayed, and before long there is quite a delegation in attendance. We finally come upon Ragnar putting on the soup in Homar's fish eating place in Riverside, and looking quite cheerful for once. But then anyone will tell you that the fish soup in Homar's is very nice indeed, if you can afford it. I point her out, and Griselda moves in like some wild animal stalking its prey. Ragnar cannot help but notice, and she looks up and says, "Something bothering you, half portion?" Well, Griselda then says, speaking loudly so that she can be heard throughout the joint, "I travel all over this land for quite a while. I spend time with trolls, and I come upon brew encampments, and scorpion man nests, and rubber runner tunnels. And once I even encounter a gorp. But I have to say, never do I see or smell such an unpleasant heap of nastiness as sits before me now. In fact," she says, "I'm wondering what can give birth to such a monstrosity. But it is no good asking you, for it is a sure thing that your mother is still running after getting one look at you, and never has the chance to tell you, always assuming," she says, "that she is sober enough to pick you out, which of her customers is responsible." Ragnar's eyes narrow during this, and her muscles tense some, but she only says, "I guess you must be this Griselda I'm hearing of here and there. Few others will have the nerve to try and force a fight on me. Nah, but I have no wish to fight at this time." Griselda shakes her head and says, "Well, it takes a while for a yellow streak to show on some people. I guess maybe you lose your nerve. Now, there's the way with some old folks, I hear. They lose their nerve." By this time, all present are deriving much enjoyment of this, even the waiters. But Ragnar does not let it faze her. If you feel bound to take a hack at me, go ahead," she says. "But you'll have to do it here, and my guess is that a public act of violence will be pushing your luck too far. If what I'm hearing is true, Constable Georgia will be very happy to get a charge to nail on you. So why not sit down and talk over whatever is on your mind?" Well, Griselda stands for a moment and then shrugs and says, "Maybe you're right." And she sits opposite Ragnar and motions you to a place between them. Ragnar eyes me in the way that makes me very nervous, but says nothing, and Griselda calls for beer. The rest drift off, looking disappointed, and the joint goes back to normal. Griselda and Ragnar do not speak until the beer arrives, and then give a little nod as they drink, and I begin to feel most uneasy as the silence between them continues. But After drinking maybe half her beer, Griselda brings up the matter of Hanufa and mentions that she is a friend of hers. "Well," says Ragnar, "I do her no lasting harm, even though I'm entitled to, considering what she calls me. Surely you wouldn't wish me to make a really serious matter of this?" "Maybe not," says Griselda. "You make a habit of fighting barehanded, I understand." Ragnar acknowledges this, and Griselda gets back to her talking on the subject. Ragnar seems to warm up when discussing her exploits, and presently Griselda relates some acts of mayhem that she witnesses or perpetrates, and they start acting much more friendly towards each other. It is as if they perceive that they are kindred spirits. And I wish to state on the basis of what I hear that this is a fair description. In fact, I'm greatly horrified by their stories, and the last thing I wish to do is stay and listen to them. But when I make as if to leave, Griselda tells me to give Ragnar my account of her vengeance for her brother and buys more beer. Well, time wears on, with them continuing to get more friendly, and finally Griselda suggests that we move on to Rowdy Joe Lowe's, and Ragnar concurs with enthusiasm, as it seems she knows the joint. I think of many people I would rather spend the evening with than Ragnar and Griselda when they are drinking, but Griselda looks at me in a certain way, and so of course I say that I will be happy to accompany them. When we arrive, Snake Fang and his boys are there as usual, playing Mumblety Peg, and they give Griselda a big hello and greet Ragnar politely. And one or two even give me a nod, though this nod is not so, it is so small it is practically invisible. It seems Mumblety Peg is one game that Ragnar never plays, and she displays great interest, so they instruct her, while Griselda and Snake Fang step aside to discuss something. Though what it is, I do not know, for I have more sense than to try eavesdropping on such characters. Presently, Griselda joins in the game, and things hot up. She's on form, and beats them one after another, and no one will wager more than a few clacks against her. Ragnar comments on this, and Snake Fang is returning for wherever he goes to just then, and says, "Why, this is too much to expect, for Griselda is our all-time champion. And when she is hot with it, that knife practically stands up and sings. Do you remember, Grizzy, how you do that exhibition on Sweet Talking Seamus? I'll never forget that poor guy's face." There is much laughter at this, and Ragnar has to be told what happens. "Of course," says Griselda, "I have to hold his hand down. It will take more nerve than I know anyone to possess to keep a hand steady without help when someone is handling the knife." Now, by this time, Ragnar has quite a load on, and she cries out that there is nothing to it, and for Griselda to do it on her. Griselda claims that she's tired and never does such a thing before, but Ragnar is most insistent. So Griselda finally says, "All right, but I need a new knife. My own gets dulled with all this use." Ragnar okays this, and Snake Fang offers one. Then Griselda gets going. But before she works up any real speed, she stops, rubs her eyes, and asks Ragnar, who is sweating a little but keeping her hands steady, if that is enough. But Ragnar says it's nothing yet, and to keep going. So Griselda continues. She finally hits a fair speed, and Ragnar's arm is trembling with the effort of keeping her hand spread, when all of a sudden Griselda misjudges and slices by her thumb. She throws down the knife at once and acts disgusted with herself, saying that she knows she ought not to go on when she is so tired. But Ragnar sucks it and says not to make such a fuss. It's only a scratch. Just as Snake Fang is saying it is the gamest thing he ever sees, Ragnar staggers and catches himself on the table. "Are you well, Ragnar?" cries Griselda. "Maybe it is a reaction." Ragnar shakes her head, and then she looks up at Griselda with her mouth falling open. And Griselda is smiling just a little in a way I remember seeing before. Ragnar stands for as long as you can count 3, and then falls flat. And Griselda leans down and says, "Now you are down among the dead men, and for good." And Snake Fang leads off with the chorus, but I do not join in, for I'm feeling a little queasy in my stomach. As they're searching the body, Snake Fang says to Griselda, You give her plenty of chances to back off. Griselda shakes her head and says, it is not in her nature. Just then, one of his boys says, hey, what is this? And we see a mark shaped like a hand on Ragnar's chest. Yep, says Griselda. This is the very same Ragnar who heads up a cacodemon bunch and cripples my aunt Gunvara so badly she has to retire. Though she gets to live because she gives Ragnar the best wrestler she has in years. We know all about it in the family, and they will be pleased to learn that I had closed the account with her. You mean you put us in danger of having her call a cacodemon in on us, cries Snake Fang, seemingly great perturbed. And I can understand his alarm, for cacodemons are the great granddaddies of all demons, and no ordinary bunch will stand against one. Not a chance. Griselda just smiles. It is very low risk, she says. She's no priest or shaman. Anyway, do you not know that a cacodemon can only show up once a week, no matter what? But Snake Fang is still looking displeased, and she pats him on the hand and pulls out a fat purse. All yours, she says, so long as you dispose of the body. And Snake Fang brightens up right away, though he shakes his head and says, boy, you surely take some chances. As we're going uptown, Griselda says to me, he is right, of course, but nothing is certain. You have to take a chance now and then. In fact, I'm taking one right now. For the purse I hand Snake Fang is Ragnar's own, which I lift some time before. I don't expect he will appreciate the joke, for he has a great sense of humour. As long as there's enough in the purse. Okay. Thank you very much for listening. There will be more stories soon. And I bid you good night.